Thank you for choosing CTN. And now, it's time with Herman and Sharron.
Cappanucci.
I love you. Thank you so
Hi,
much
everybody.
for joining us. We appreciate you more than you have any idea. Words can't explain it. We've been here for a few years. I was just saying to my guest as we were walking out here, he said, "You've been here a while, haven't you?" And I said, "Well, let's put it this way. I was 40 when I came, and I'm 78. Do the math." But it is a great interview today because we're talking about removing your shame label. There it is on your screen. If you would like a copy, please write that website down. This is Eddie Cappanucci, his first book. So when he comes back to us in a few years, he'll say, "This is my 5th book." And we will say, "We had you when you were here on your first book." He is a licensed professional counselor by the state of Georgia. Do you have to get licensed for every state to be a counselor?
You practice where you're licensed. You can't practice in any other
So it's,
state unless you're
wow,
licensed.
it's like medical doctors.
Yes, correct.
He graduated with distinction, whatever that means. It was different than I used to graduate. It was like, "Get out of here, will you please? We're sick of you." But he graduated with distinction from Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia, where our son-in-law met our daughter in college, our granddaughter graduated, our son, all kinds of connections to Lynchburg, Virginia. He is a member of the American Counseling Association, American Association of Christian Counselors, and the Georgia Licensed Professional Counselors Association. He's just
Yes, I
prolific
guess
in
so.
every organization. He and his wife, Terry, she is in the audience. So she's going to speak up if you say anything incorrect.
She usually does.
Okay. Okay. They have a private practice in Marietta, Georgia, specializing in sexual addiction recovery. And that's going to be part of the subject, not all of the subject. Now, I'm not offering this, but I want to do this because I'll forget otherwise. I love this comment that was made. It says, porn, talking about sexual addiction, is usually involved in pornography. Porn allows you to feel like a man without being one. Do you agree with
Wow,
that?
I like
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Isn't that a great?
It's a very good.
It is
Profound.
But this series now you can go to Google and find it, or Amazon online or whatever. It's a series that is so worthwhile. In fact, they have I believe, a program on the Christian television network that is just outstanding. But I recommend this because the guy doing the series, actually knows what he's talking about. And so we're going to find out if Eddie Cappanucci, is that Italian?
It is a little bit.
Just a
Are
little
you
bit.
100% Italian?
I'm 100% Italian.
Wow, wow. So, Mom and Dad, did they immigrate here?
No, great grandparents. We were I'm like 3rd generation.
From what part
here,
of Italy?
Toward the Sicily side.
Sicily.
Yes, toward that end of Italy.
We've got
Southern.
a 50% Italian grandson.
Oh,
And if you were to see him in person, you would say, he's 100% Italian. Because I mean, he just looks like Italian. But your book, great, by the way. And this is your first book.
It is.
How long does it take to put something like this together?
it took about 2 years. The first time, the first copy got trashed.
Because?
Because I didn't like it. Because after I wrote it, I let it sit for about 3-4 months, and went back and reread it and didn't like any of it, so threw it away, started all over again.
Wow.
When you started over, did you have any trappings of the last one?
Some, probably
Yeah.
maybe 25%.
So you kind of cleaned it up.
Yes, cleaned it. It was a pretty major overhaul, though.
Wow. Some of the context, introducing the Christian shame cycle. These are the subject matter, and if you want to call them chapters. the shame of impure motives, the shame of carrying garbage, the shame of staying stuck, the shame of being distracted by distractions, the shame of contaminated thoughts. Boy, that is, that is. Have you ever sat sometime and you'll have a contaminated thought come into your head and you go, and I do this, I go, where did that come from? I mean,
well, but again, they're intrusive thoughts.
Yes.
Intrusive thoughts, we could do nothing about them coming in. It's what we do with them once they come in.
oh, I like that. The shame of loving with conditions. The
Yes.
shame of uncontrolled pride. Wow. The shame of excessive worry. The shame of self-loathing. The shame of hardened heart, keeping shame at bay. That's the book, but he elaborates obviously on those subjects. The shame cycle. Okay, you picked up on that metaphor. Use that to kind of walk us through.
Sure, absolutely. The whole book, it came to be because of, in my practice, the one thing I was noticing, again, I also promote myself as a Christian counselor. So therefore, 90% of the people who come into my office are Christian. And the one thing that I really saw over and over again is that these people had a very strained relationship from God. Even though, you know, they may be involved in Bible studies and go to church and do their prayer and whatever, but it's just, they feel distant from God. And as I got deeper into it and understanding it, what it came down to was this sense of shame.
Yeah.
And how did it begin? It began with this idea of, you know, these thoughts that we have or these feelings that we have that are inadequacy, okay? And we move those and we want to get rid of this emotional distress that we feel. So how do we get rid of emotional distress? In many cases, what we try to do is try to distract ourselves. So therefore, what we do, we will turn to things that are not really healthy for us, okay? And that may be, you know, a sexual addiction that you were just talking about before. Could be alcohol, could be drugs. It could be just the fact of my tongue. My tongue is not controlled well, that I'm just an angry person.
Even overeating.
Right, overeating may be another one.
Yeah.
There's many different things. So therefore, we engage in that behavior. And after we're done, now, not only are the emotional distress, not only is that back, but now there's the shame that I've given into my sinful nature. I've activated my sinful nature, and I've moved there.
Share you talk about the Christian shame cycle.
Correct.
Just turn to it.
Yes. And from there, from the emotional pain and the behavior, we get to the shame. And then with that shame, I have the feeling of worthlessness or self-loathing. Now, here comes the really bad part, though. What I do then, though, is I project those feelings that I have, this negative feeling that I have about myself, I project them on God. And I say he feels the same way about me, that he is now distancing himself from me. He wants nothing to do with me because of my sinful nature. And therefore, now my shame is reinforced. I now move back to, again, more emotional pain. And how do I get rid of the emotional pain? I go back to more simple behavior.
Can you give me a visual? What does shame look like?
Well, the difference between feeling shame and guilty is I feel guilty because of something I've done. Shame is I feel bad about myself. So therefore, with guilt, I'm bad because of what I did. With shame, I'm just bad. I'm a bad person. So therefore, if I go and I overeat, to bring up the example you said, okay? I overeat. Now what I do is I feel bad about me. I have no self-control. I'm not able to, you know, take those impulses I have and be able to do something with them. I feel now the fact is that, look at me, I'm overweight, whatever it may be. But it's about my vision of myself. I am the problem, not the behavior, if that makes sense.
And that's not good to do that, you're saying.
No, shame is the most toxic emotion we have. And again, it's a wonderful tool that Satan uses to serve as a wedge between not just us and God, but us and others. Because we will withdraw if we feel shame, because we don't want to engage with people.
something physically or emotionally, or you're drained because of some traumatic thing that happened, and your book talks about that can lead you into something that you weren't planning on doing.
Correct.
But the door opens and you walk through it.
Right. What I talk about is, and I almost all my clients, we talk about the idea of being drained, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. If I'm drained in one or more of those areas, what's going to happen is I need to get replenished, because the brain is saying stimulation. We need stimulation. Okay, we are depleted. So therefore, I may be exhausted because I'm just tired. All right, but instead of going and getting some sleep, instead I'll go and do something else that may be destructive for me, or not good for me, not healthy for me. So therefore, if I tell people, when you're drained, bad things happen.
Yeah.
So therefore, we need to keep ourselves replenished. How do we do that? We have lifelines that we develop that are healthy things that we bring into our life to help to make sure that we're not depleted.
Such as?
Well, for example, spiritually, this book right here, the best thing you can pick up.
But you know,
Okay.
I've been destroyed many times in my life, where I felt like I can't go on.
Right.
But what you just said, that's the one thing that I won't pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that's what we should do.
That's exactly
okay?
what we should
Because there's something about that word that you go, no,
Mm-hmm.
because that word is a mirror.
Yes. And it's energizing. What is fulfilling? Again, what is it? It is living water.
Mm-hmm.
It replenishes us. It nourishes us. But yet, you're right, this is not where people think to go.
No,
where they go is to the world.
Yeah, spiritual people,
Right.
you can say, here's a verse, and they go, oh, thank you for that. But a person like we're talking about here,
Mm-hmm.
they will stare at you,
Correct.
and they will probably make no reply.
Right. So therefore, I give them different lifelines to do. Well, I still encourage things like this. Exercise could be a healthy lifeline that have. Calling a friend when you're in that dire moment of that time should be something that you may want to do. We have to identify what are the lifelines that are going to generate us and to replenish us.
Have you noticed, because I've, armchair counselor, people come to you because they see you and want to talk to you and whatever. And
Yes.
so I've tried to help some people that have been really messed up. But it's interesting, you can always tell if they're involved with another person. Nothing makes sense to them when you're talking to them because they don't want to let go of that. Mm-hmm. So you have to break all ties before, and I'm sure you, as a counselor,
Yes.
probably the first thing you say is, are you involved right now?
Right.
Yeah.
And when they say that, you know you've got a mountain to climb.
We do, and you do have a mountain to climb because, again, the idea is that if you're trying to get away from a destructive behavior, that destructive behavior does something
Yeah.
that makes the person feel very positive, okay? Because
That's
most of
true.
the time, it's bringing dopamine to the brain, okay, which is a pleasure-enhancing chemical. And so therefore, we need to educate them about the fact that, you know what, that is artificial, it is short-term, and ultimately it's just going to lead to more problems. We need to go and find healthy outlets, healthy ways to be able to do the same thing that destructive, sinful behaviors would do.
When you're in the shame mode, you're afraid to talk to people, am I right?
Yes.
Then how do you ever get help to the individual?
Because the people who come in, they don't realize that they have shame issues. And as you're talking to them and leading them down the pathway, because see, that's what we do as counselors. We don't tell people what to do. What we do is we show them different pathways. And if we're leading them down different pathways, what is always going to show them at some point is, guess what? Part of the problem that you're facing right now is the fact that you have shame. So whether it's the fact that you don't want to deal with the issue itself, okay, or if you have people in your life that are causing you problems, shame is usually sitting there somewhere. And by identifying that to them and allowing them to now say, ooh, never realized that. I didn't think that was a problem. Now we can take the steps to try to remove it.
So how do you deal with someone that is just full of shame? You know, that's what it is. They're just full of shame. How does someone help a person like that?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, they have to understand what is the shame about, okay? Shame is a tool that Satan uses for two reasons. One, he wants you to be distant between you and God. And two, he wants you to be distant in other relationships. What? Satan can't have the believer's soul. Can't have your soul. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I make your life as miserable as possible while you're here.
So you accomplish nothing.
Right. So you accomplish nothing. Okay. What we do is we talk to people about shame. See, shame happens many times because people have been labeled by either another person or an event in their life. They've let that to define who they are. And what we say is, no, that is not how we get defined. We get defined through one source, and that is through Jesus Christ. And that is the source. He is what our self-worth is about. That is where we get it from. If you're going to try to get your self-worth from other people, you are going to fail, because other people are going to fail you. Christ never fails. So therefore, that label that we must wear is, I am a prince or a princess of a king. That is the only label that we wear. All other labels are false labels.
Now, shame only probably happens to Christians or people that believe in God, because the world, I wouldn't think, would have any shame if they did wrong.
Well, but there are people who, you know, again, they may not believe in God, they may not believe in Jesus Christ, they may believe in a God, but yet they could still suffer shame from some of their sinful behaviors that they have. They just don't call it sin.
Yeah.
They call it, my conscience is bothering me.
Like, my conscience is bothering
Yeah.
me. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Is our objective to live sin-free?
Well, if you can figure that out, please tell me. I would love to know if that's possible. Because no, we can't live sin-free. And Scripture tells us there is none righteous, not one. And that's the other aspect of it with sin. See, we have so many Christians that are sitting in the pews in church, and they are involved with sin, okay? But yet they feel that the people around them have it all together. They're all buttoned up. Everything's good. It's like, why can't I be like them? Well, guess what? You are. Because if you look into their lives, you would see that they have similar problems that you have. To understand, first and foremost, no, we are sinners. And that's okay. God understands. That's why Christ comes, for that reason. Right? He's here for us. And therefore, he understands. You know what? We're broken people. People hardwired us when we were younger. Events and circumstances came into our life that crippled us. God knows that. And he knows that, guess what? There may be some issues in your life that you struggle to get rid of. But if you continue to say, one, in my heart, I want to abide. That's what he wants. He wants that heart, knowing that your actions may not always measure up to your heart. But he wants the heart to say, I want to abide.
Wow. I love the verse, 2 Corinthians 10:5, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself, because much of what you're talking about and the very walk into shame are imaginations.
Yes, they are imaginations. And that's the problem, because again, we go back to the idea of how we think about ourselves. And the way we think about ourselves was programmed a long time ago.
Right.
Okay? Whether parents, peers, whatever.
And the imaginations come from what we watch,
Yes. Bring in the...
what we read, or what we listen to.
Yes. Bring
All
all
of
those
it.
other factors into the mix,
Yeah.
right? That
Do
are
you-
also going to influence us.
Do you ask the people that you're sitting in front of, that you're talking to, what are you reading? Do you ever get in?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact,
What do you
a lot-
watch?
And a lot of times what we wind up telling people is we need blackouts. Okay? We
Well,
need
say that again.
blackouts. We want to move away from media. We want to move away from the radio. We want to move away from television. We want to move away from the news. Let's move away from some of that for a while. You know, too many people got their face down looking at their phone all day
Yeah,
long.
right.
And therefore, they're so distracted by things, and they're not focused on where they should be.
You talk about seeking to identify contaminated thoughts or moods. How do you identify it?
Well, I mean, a thought you can identify pretty quickly, okay, if it comes in. As we said before, a lot of times, you know, they're intrusive thoughts that come in. The way we identify that, and the way, because this is the problem I said before, you know, we're down here with in our phone, we're not mindful. We're not living in the moment. We don't slow down. We just go, go, go everywhere. So therefore, we could get hit with a lot of intrusive thought that could wind up shifting your mood. You could wake up in the morning and you feel great.
That's
And all of a sudden you're going all day long, and all of a sudden these thoughts are coming, they're all worry and concern and issues, and before you know it, you're feeling kind of ornery. Versus if you would have caught it earlier in the day, those thoughts when they're coming in, because I take a moment to slow down and say, okay, what is this? Why am I feeling overwhelmed? Relax. This is not where I should be. Let me go focus maybe on some scripture. Let me go get a cup of coffee. Let me just go take a walk. Go pray for a moment, whatever it may be, just to slow things down. Therefore, we don't allow our thoughts to alter our moods.
What do you mean by shame of loving with conditions?
That would be, you know, like for example, I'll love you if. Now put in whatever emotional manipulator you'd like to add into that right there. Okay, so I'll love you if you do that for me. I'll love you if you change and do this. Okay, and when we think about it, we see that a lot with couples. You know, people come in all the time and it's like, fix him, fix her.
Yeah.
Like, no, wait, sorry, you need to fix yourself.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear that, do they?
Oh, no, and they don't want to hear that at all.
Yeah.
No.
But, you know, work on yourself.
Because I'm here because of that.
Correct.
Not because of this. Yeah.
Yes, right, which is sinful in itself.
Yeah.
Okay? Oh, I got it all together. That's the problem. No, not really. I'm not saying he or she is not a problem, and we have to work on that behavior. But you have to look inside to say, why am I, you know, just so burnt out over here?
As a counselor, how do people trust you? Because trust is a big deal.
Time, they trust us over time. Two, I share a little bit about myself with
Okay.
people to give them a sense of, hey, you know what, I'm broken also. Credibility, I guess it gives me in that regard. Three, I don't tell them what to do. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you the guidance that you need. The other thing I really tell people when they come in, I go, I'm not a very passive counselor, and they're like, what do you mean? I go, I talk. I talk because I believe you come in here for insight
Yeah.
and answers. And most of them all go, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Goodness you're here. Because usually to go to counselors, they'll go, tell me more, tell me more.
What is your background?
I have a master's degree in counseling. As I said, I've been licensed by the state of Georgia.
But I mean, how did you come to know the Lord as your Savior?
Whoa.
Were you born as a baby?
I mean, my testimony could take an hour here, but real fast, I was raised, I wasn't raised in a very Christian home, but I was told, go over to church. My mother pointed me in the direction, and
Yeah.
I walked there on Sunday. And then I kept going to church most of my life. But at around age 40, and I was living a worldly life. I was an advertising and marketing executive for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Okay? It was all about money, it was all about power, it was all about prestige. And finally I met this amazing woman who I've been married to for over 20 years, almost 20 years now.
That's a great
And
statement.
yeah, it's really good. And but what happened was, you know, we moved to Georgia from New Jersey, and we sat in a church where the first time I heard somebody say, it's about having a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I remember I turned to my wife and I said, he must be out of his mind. What's he talking about? How can I have a relationship with somebody I can't see, can't touch, can't talk to? It's hard enough having a relationship with you and others. She's like, quiet, we're in church. But anyway, the pastor came over the next night and spent 4 hours with me, and it began me on the whole process.
Wow, that's wonderful.
That did it. Well, but the thing was nice. Okay, great. I now feel, I feel closer to God. This is good. But then he threw a curveball at me, and he said, oh, well, guess what? No more corporate America for you. You know what? I have something else for you. Like, no, I don't want anything else. I like this.
Wow.
I like what I have.
Yeah.
And I fought him for 2 years. And finally, I succumbed. My wife had a great time being entertained, watching me over those 2 years fight him, and gave up, quit the advertising marketing world, went back, got another degree, did all the work the state needed, and now here we are.
That is a great testimony. Wow.
Was it a correct decision, or
Oh,
have you woke up and go, what have I done?
As I tell people, never am I never in more peace than when I sit in that chair across from people.
Wow.
And the other thing that's just so amazing is I get to see God at work every day.
That's the key. It's about
That's
him.
fulfilling, isn't it?
Yeah. It's about him, not about
Yes.
Oh, it's not about me. I'm
Yeah.
just a vessel.
Yeah.
There's stuff that comes out of my mouth when I'm in those sessions that I don't even know where it came
But I love the way you talk. You're so calming. You have a nice calming voice about you.
Yeah, I've been over here sleeping. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Just kidding.
Please
No,
communicate that to my wife.
Yeah, wives know a whole lot more about the husband, don't they? But anyway, yeah.
You have about a minute. That's your camera right there.
Okay.
Share Christ.
You know, shame is a horrible thing. And in many times we don't even realize that we are inflicted by it. Today, whether you are just troubled by relationship issues, or perhaps maybe you are just feeling depressed, there's a lot of anxiousness in you, there's a source to turn to.
Yeah.
And I know you may not want to turn to God because you may say, God is not there for me, but he is. He's always there for you. God doesn't ask you to stand before him so that he can point out your shame. God asked you to stand before him so he can help remove your shame. If you look at Psalms 71, in thee, O Lord, I put my trust. Let me never be put to shame. And that's what we need to do. We need to put our trust in God and our trust in the Lord. And if you do that, slow things down, you'll see that your shame will be taken away.
Wow.
Amen.
Isn't that wonderful that
Yeah.
you today have discovered a key. Slow things down. Let the Lord speak to you and receive it. He'll change your life. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching It's Time. If you have recently made a decision for Christ, Herman and Sharron would like to hear from you.